Welcome to Powerful Women Off the Record, where real women talk about what it takes to remain authentic while leading in a complex world. I'm your host, Elizabeth Veely. Today I'm joined by Jennifer Dolin, CEO of the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation, a major affordable housing nonprofit in San Francisco, California. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm so happy we get to talk and you're taking time off on your vacation to speak with me. And like I mentioned, I am just gathering the high impact women in my life that I just have a deep respect for and that I personally feel carry just a deep power within them. And I know they've been through a lot in life and I know they are successful in their careers and I know somehow they sustained that power and I know stuff happens, so I've been through it myself. And so I just wanted to gather everyone and start asking you, like,
Mm,
a few questions about how you sustain this power, what you do to feed, fill yourself back up after, and any tricks and tips, not only just for each of us, but also for some of the young women coming up, and that maybe they can avoid some of, I'll speak for myself, some of the burnout I've experienced where
mm.
I didn't catch my signs fast enough. I thought I was Wonder Woman. In fact, I used to have a picture of Wonder Woman in my office. I finally took it down because I was like, that's kind of an unhealthy archetype. Not that I don't think Wonder Woman is beautiful. I'm totally going on a tangent here, but it was that energy of just doing everything for everyone that I had to kind of switch. So that's
Mhm.
what I'm doing here. So I wanted to start with tell me about a time in your life, your career, whatever, where things started to not feel right. They weren't right, working right, whether you were feeling like you were out of your authenticity and you had to make a change. And so how, what were the signs and how did you do it? How did you find the strength to do it?
That's a great question. Thanks for including me in this fun project. I think it was definitely as we were coming out of COVID, and I had been in my company for 19 years, and I started to find out through conversations or just through the sort of getting up in the morning that I just didn't feel like I was having the same impact on my colleagues that I had had over the years. And I think moving through COVID with an essential workforce, I was finding this balance and my power. But I think as we were emerging out of it and some semblance of normal was beginning to return, I just felt off. Like I just felt like everything was just making me mad. Like I was just like annoyed by people and I kept joking. I was like, I am an HR nightmare. Like I was doing all the things of not assuming positive intent. I was like feeling people were personally attacking me. And I think those were some of the signs that it was time to move from an organization that was really family to me, was really somebody who supported me as a young mom, supported my career, taught me so much. And the signs were just sort of all there with the leadership, new leadership coming in. And so it was hard to break from an organization that I honestly thought I was going to stay. Like I had no problem with the longevity of being there. Those what people would say about me is like, oh, she just stayed in one organization. That I had role models who had stayed in the organization as well, and I just figured I was going to retire from there. And so when this moment of seeing all those indicators that I just mentioned started to show up for me, that's when it kind of got scary. I'm like, oh my God, am I willing to step away from this organization that has done so much to nurture me as a leader, and given me so much in terms of that balance that I feel like I was able to have, and then feeling bad, about leaving folks who were there because some of the original leaders had started to leave, that I had seen myself as being that person, right? As being their legacy, right? And that I was departing and thought, oh, wow, they had given me this power to kind of continue in the mission, the values, and now I was just leaving behind all these colleagues. So that would have been my big pivotal moment where I knew this would be hard, and the signs that it was time to leave.
Your sign, it's so funny how many of the women, some women have said it worded it as I couldn't deal with the nonsense like I used to be able to. But it was that. It was like something starts kicking up inside of us and it's butting up against something. And it's I think for me, it's a little confusing at first because it's like, wait, no, this works. This is where I've been. This is great. Everybody's great. I love everybody. What are we doing? And then I think I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I overthink it. Like, why am I doing this? Maybe I'm leaving too soon. Like, the infamous goodbye. Is this the right goodbye?
Mm,
And then I'll overthink it for a good 6 to 9 months, and then right, but and then health starts hitting. The next two by
ooh.
four comes right where it's like, nope, sorry, I gave you the little whisper. So I love that you said that, and I also love once you decided to make the move, I find it fascinating because this has happened to me too. Stuff changes within the organization. Like you said, there's some changes in leadership or things were going on, and you're like, "Oh, am I making the right decision?" It is so
Mhm.
strange to me, but I feel like that happens a lot. So I don't know if it just responds to our energy, but I mean,
Hmm.
it sounds like it made you hesitate, but then you moved forward, right? You ended up honoring
Sure.
your initial decision.
For sure. Yeah, no, there is always that moment of hesitation, right? Is like, is this the right thing for me at this moment in my life? Should I stick it out? Should I keep going? Right there. So there are lots of moments where you're self-doubting yourself, right? Not
Yes.
responding potentially to those physical or emotional indicators that you're receiving. And maybe as a woman, we often diminish those. Oh, I must be imagining those. Those can't be real, right? So we often have learned those behaviors as women in society, right? Of a certain age, right? My feelings, my how I come into the world isn't as important as either a male counterpart within the workforce or the ways that I saw my parents growing up. So yes, that sort of not responding to those indicators and doubting that they're real or that they're meaningful.
I love that. I love that. Because those instincts we have are such gifts. I think as women, this is a gift. We don't always call it that. It's been
Mm,
called a lot of other things like being way too sensitive or being, I don't know, I've been called that before. And then, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that's what makes me powerful, right?
right.
Those intuitive hits, those
Yep.
moments, when to stay, when to go. But you're
Right.
right, there is that time frame of doubting ourselves. That brings me to your no. The strength of your no. If do you think you have a strong no? Would your family say you do? Would your colleagues say you do?
I definitely, there are places where I have a strong no, and there are other places where I don't, right? So it is a little bit weird where that part shows up. So I was really lucky that I had parents, one, a father who really admired my mother and understood that she needed to grow professionally in order to be happy in their marriage, right? And so many men of his era, right? They were born in the late 40s and or early 40s. And these tropes of who they were in society were very strong, right? But my father had a single mom, was around very strong women in his life, and so of course he was attracted to a strong woman in college. And I think my mom gives him a lot of credit, like because she understood that there were other men in her life who felt like the women that they were selecting had to stay at home, had to take care of the kids. And my dad really recognized that that was not going to work for my mom. So I just feel really lucky that no. So I said my dad said yes, knowing that my mother had a very strong no. Right. So I think I kind of learned about the no because of my mother. And I think for her that showed up in her professional career and other places. So feel really lucky to have been in that kind of family dynamic. And as a result, my sister and I sort of embodied that sort of strong-willed no. But I would also say we also had my dad's empathy and sympathy and this part of us that it was easier to say yes sometimes than to say no. So yeah, it's all sort of dependent on when that strong no shows up.
Right, right. That's so beautiful about your dad. I call it, I've been trying to find a name for it, but I'm calling it like the divine masculine, where
I
it's a
love that.
balance, right? Because we talk a lot about the divine feminine, and to me, that's the divine masculine, where it's balanced, and
Mm,
it's what I think we would all love to have in our lives. And yes, we're supposed to have it both within ourselves, right? The balance of the yin and yang and the divine masculine and feminine, but man, what a blessing to have that playing out in the matrix around you as your dad, right? And then especially as a young woman, for you and your sister to be
right.
able to have that. Oh, like that probably explains some of your you're very grounded. You're very grounded in your power, I guess. And I'm still looking for the word. It's more than confidence. It's more than it's just a grounding in of power is the only way. I don't know. Does
Mm.
that resonate with you?
No,
Like,
I think, absolutely it resonates. It is a sense of grounding, and I think it's because having two parents who've had that sense of grounding is a gift, right? They now it's not to say they don't have their things, right? But I would say, looking back, that they were very clear on who they were, what they wanted in their lives, and how they wanted to do that together in a relationship. And that, of course, is so lucky when parents can give that gift then to their kids, right? And then we can
mhm.
take it forward. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
that is
grounding is
beautiful.
I think grounding is great. I don't think there's any, yeah, I think that's a great way of saying that.
Do you have like some they could be the most simple rituals or habits, something you do consistently to either keep you on center or bring you back to center?
Mm. So in my current job, I've been thinking a lot about this. And this sounds, I'm just gonna say it, like sleep. Like I
Mm.
totally believe in sleep.
Mhm.
I am not one of I am always just really fascinated by people who can exist on such little sleep. And I think as women, sleep for me is what is my balance. And so when I don't get it, I am not in my best space. I also feel like probably through a lot of good fortune and privilege, I was able to balance my life with both a personal life and a work life. And I'm trying to take that forward now that I don't have little kiddos in the house, right? And so kids are a natural balance to your life because you have to switch from one role in the workforce and then come home. And I always wanted that. I always wanted that to be my best role in my
Yeah.
life, was to be known as a great mom. And that was a huge priority for me. Like I wanted to make sure that I was in a role and a position that allowed me to be the best mom possible.
You
So
so nailed it. The kids forced the balance, not even forced, but designed a natural balance.
for me now,
Yes.
I would say that I've met women where that wasn't their priority or they had other mechanisms to do that. But for me, that was a really important balance because I recognized that actually was the most important job I had, right? So this other thing that I was doing was sort of like I always termed it as something for me. I termed it as like an insurance, right? I don't know, I had just always heard these devastating stories of, again, maybe it's from the era that my parents grew up in, of women whose husbands passed away suddenly and they were there and had no competencies in the world, right?
Yes.
To be able
Yes.
to exist because their husbands had sort of created an environment. And for some reason, that like resonated because I think I saw that. Like I think I saw evidence as I was growing up and I was like, I don't want that to happen to me.
Mhm.
So work actually was this insurance policy or this thing that
Mm.
I did in order for me to be able to be the best mom possible. So if that if some circumstance arose, I wasn't left in this really traumatic place where I wasn't able to be who I wanted to be. Um, so yeah, being a mom was kind of the first thing. So that's why the balance happened is because I respected and wanted that. That was more of a priority than my job.
So what are you doing now? The kids are older, and how are you creating that balance?
Well, I'm here in Mexico. Right,
Yes.
it's that realization that as crazy as your work life is, as critical and urgent as things are, that you have to step away and gain perspective. And not only through vacations, but I try to do that every week on the weekends, right? I try to say, um, you need to be able to take a break from what you're doing in order to gain the perspective that you need. So whether that is coming home, cooking dinner, and just realizing I am not going to get to that tonight. My brain is tired. It's okay. It will be in their morning. Is it perfection? Am I showing up in excellence? I'm like, it's good enough. I'm okay with good enough. And a lot of people are not okay with good enough. I have learned with having kids, right? Good enough is good enough. So
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think that's another place where I'm able to strike that balance or be able to do that without the kids at home. Um, and I also just, yeah, I just try and allow myself time for rest.
Mhm, mhm. I think it's funny when you say good enough because I think the Jen Dolan good enough is like most people's fantastic, right? And so I love though that like you're tempering yourself and you're catching yourself because you know we could stumble into over perfectionism and all that stuff. And which the kids I know beat that out of me. You know, having three kids, once you get outnumbered, it's life is different, right? They
That's
kind
right.
of you become a different person. So I love that. So
Yep.
sleep, man, I've been doing a lot of research on this too, and it's fascinating how critical the hours between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. are. Because that I mean I had no
Oh,
idea how much the physical body and the organs they all take turns during these segments of cleansing. It's
mm,
crazy, like, when you really do the research. So if you're not asleep in those hours between 10 and 4, some body part did not get to do what it needed to do. Some cell didn't get to flush, the brain didn't get to clear
interesting.
out. Parts of your memory goes into like long term and short term. Like this magic happens between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., which is only 6 hours, which is fascinating because I am curious. Like, if you were going
Hmm.
to be a person that only slept 6 hours, you should probably shoot for that time frame if you want to sync up with your body. I just found that so cool.
It's interesting. It starts at 10 and maybe I wonder, I would be curious because I live by the sun, right? So my body clock is very in tune to light. So in the summer months, going to bed later or like I'm wondering if there's a seasonality to that as well. And
Mhm.
because
Probably.
10 to 4 just seems so rigid to me and I just feel like as beings, animals, I always like to remind people we are animals, that
Yes, yes.
there is sort of like these shifts in seasons as well. So yeah, so in the winter, yes, your body needs more of that restorative time that it's signaling. Now, that can't be true because if you live by the equator, there's like
I
something
know,
else
that's why
that's
it's kind
happening,
of it's kind
right?
of weird. I know, I know.
And that's probably you've adapted to that environment, right? Where there's a more consistency. So that 10 to 4 thing, if you live in the equator, probably makes a lot of sense, right? Then it
Yes.
could be more rigid. But as you go to the polar opposites, right, your body has to adjust or shift, and how the animal part of your body and brain sort of adapts to that new normal.
You've always been really good at like taking care of your body and communicating with your body. And I think that is such a critical piece of this puzzle. Like, we can't just be a head walking around thinking that,
Right.
our brain and our mind is going to make it all happen. And, I think I had a fatal flaw with that. Not, well, thank God, not fatal. I guess I was a little dramatic. Um, I just kept expecting my body to keep up. It was like,
Mm,
just keep up. I mean, I actually had a great respect for my body and how sophisticated the human body is,
mm,
especially the female body. I mean, we are creators. We create life, right? I mean, just I loved being pregnant and just
mm.
being aware that, we
Wow.
are creatrixes. But then I don't know when that went away, when it was like, oh yeah, body, just keep up with me. We're just gonna grind, grind, grind. And because the body keeps score and it will
You know when
event.
you're
And
going to find out
sometimes
about that next?
menopause.
Hmm.
Yes. I think menopause is just simply when your body sits down with you with a scorecard and says,
Yep.
okay, let's
Yep.
talk.
You get that grace period, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, so I want to circle back to something we were talking about, is that the something about my body also was changing at that same time. And it was saying to me, you need to rest. You need to rest in a different way. So I
Mm,
love that as women, we and I think it is a gift, right? So you were talking about the gift of being able to reproduce in that way, and carry a child. But then this menopause thing is just also completely fascinating, and I love that there's more study around that now, and
yes.
we're learning more about how the chemistry of our bodies shift over time, and also how we're living longer and what those
Yes.
implications are to our body as well. And again, here's a whole science that never gets focused on because, of course, women are now, thankfully, now in roles in science so that we're going to learn more about how our bodies are affected, and how we need to adapt the workplace for who we are and not for who men are.
I
Look
love that.
forward. Look forward to my daughter and her generation. So she's in, I think you and I have children in the same era, like in her early 20s, but what that world is going to look like for her, and how we're going to see the workforce change probably again.
Agreed. I totally agree. That this is one of the areas I'm very excited about AI with, is honestly on the medical side, because I think,
Oh,
we're learning now how a lot of the medical testing and research, a lot of it wasn't even done for women because of the hormones, which is the very reason why we need to do it
right.
on women. I get the catch 22. Like, I get when you're a scientist and you need to have, standards and all that. But I'm really excited about where it's going. So we both have young women, daughters come in, and yeah, I'm like fascinated for them and the world that we're handing to them. Um, so just so we can wrap up on time, um, what would you like? Give some advice. You probably already have given it to your daughter. Um, for powerful women, women that they've got the power and they're coming up into the world, and the world's going to test them. And because I feel like we get tested on how are you going to maintain that power, that authenticity, but also, because that's the key here, you are also highly effective.
Hmm.
Any advice?
It's actually advice I would rather give to the parents of these young women, and which was, I think, how we started this conversation, which is a little bit about let that child be that child in who she is, right? Because I would always say about my daughter, Nora, everything I want in a woman, but not in a child. Like, I would get so frustrated with her independence, her being like just being who she was. And as a parent, you're like, I just like wanted to like control. I wanted her to fit into like my schedule. And so how do you let that authentic child grow up? And the boy, my son the same way. How do you let them grow up to be their authentic selves, right? So I think then if you can sort of foster that and allow that to happen, then the rest is easy. Like then the advice is, show up as your authentic self no matter where you are. Hopefully with kindness, hopefully with values that you've instilled as a family around that child. But always that authentic person should be able to be allowed to be in their world, how they are, and they don't have to hide that. And that would just be lovely if we were in a world where people did not have to hide their authentic selves.
I'll tell you, that is like so fundamental. Like you gave me a chill when you said that because that is probably the number one thing that will drain you in life is
Right.
when you're living with that mask and you're not being authentic, and it's no judgment. It's hard to go into the world and try to be effective with all different types of
Right.
people in the world and everything that goes on there. But when you start feeling drained, I think you have to look at that. I think you're right. I think you have to look at where are you not showing up authentically, and maybe you have to make some moves,
Right.
which can be scary to get there. And I think
Right.
that whole word authentic is being used a lot lately, and I'm glad though, because I don't know about you, but even when I was talking about or thinking about doing this, and I was using the term in my mind originally, high performing women, and I was like,
Mm,
oh, I don't like the word performing anymore. Like it's
mm.
really, I don't want the performance. I want the just the high impact, high
Yes.
influence, right? High authentic. I was even thinking of what REO Speedwagon's high, except high infidelity. Are they high fidelity? I don't know, whatever. Fidelity. I was trying to find a better word for
Right.
what it is. But you're right. Authenticity is probably the main thing to keep your
Or
power
be
strong.
who you are, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
don't have to say authentic, but just be your true self
Yeah.
is kind of such a big gift if you can be your true self. And we just live in a structural, we live in a sort of a world that doesn't often allow people to be their true selves, which is really hard. It's really hard. And
Yeah. And
which
I
is
want to
why
be
there's so
real.
much harm and why there's so
Yes.
much trauma in our world is because
Yes.
people are not being heard, but yeah, they're just not being able to show up for who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend to be naive to think that the world is a safe container to completely do that yet. I mean, I even think
Yeah,
about when I launched in my career. It was back when you had to wear a suit, but women could not wear pantsuits. It had to be a
right?
skirt. And we could only wear brown or gray or blue. And I remember the day I showed up in a burgundy suit and all hell broke loose.
Good for you.
And I don't know if that was good or bad, honestly, because it's pretty. I mean, I was proud of myself, but I don't know if I got any prizes because of it. And that's where I'm saying, like, sometimes it's weird on how you get to play that out in
Right.
life. Because does that make me effective if I'm so authentic that I'm turning the people away that I need to influence? It's like this weird balance, right?
That's right. That's right. I love the Julia Dreyfus podcast. Have you heard of this that she
No,
does? Um,
no.
Wiser Than Me is the name of her podcast. And she's interviewing women in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I think she started her podcast maybe with Jane Fonda. I can't remember who her first podcast was, but this idea that women who are wiser than her and what can she glean from them? And as women age, especially women of, who are in their 80s and 90s, again, they are so wise and they have lived through so much. And what is the information we can take from our elders and share it? And so I just love that podcast, and I think you're sort of doing a very similar. It's like who are these wise women, and let me talk to them about their power and how they show up. So I am just so excited to hear more.
Thank you
Okay,
so much,
I will.
Jennifer. I
Thank you.
really
It's so
appreciate
nice
it.
to see you. All right, have
Enjoy
a
your
good
trip.
one. Talk
Okay,
soon.
bye bye.
Bye bye.
Before we close, I want to sincerely thank you for sharing your time and perspective with us today. These conversations really matter, and I'm grateful for your openness. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Powerful Women Off the Record with Elizabeth Veely. If today's episode resonated, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if it feels aligned, follow the show so you don't miss what's next. Until then, stay sovereign.